We got kits. We got tits. We got. I saw my mammograms. So today we're talking about our experiences with the Dutch healthcare system and comparing and contrasting it with our experiences with the U.S. healthcare system. So how do we begin this?
Well, we've been both, I can't speak for River, but I've been fortunate in my employment in the U.S., okay, and a lot of people's insurance really depends on your employer because for the most part, insurance in the United States, everybody knows how expensive it is. If you get a job, and one of the big benefits always is the health care and how much is covered. It's because insurance is very expensive. So I've been very fortunate in the jobs that I've had living in New York City to have a majority of my health care costs were covered. But River has had a different experience as far as that goes.
Yeah, I went 20 years without health care insurance because my jobs did not offer a group plan, and it was completely unaffordable without a group plan. It was sometimes pretty expensive with it, depending on, like once I got a job that had it and waited till I was allowed the benefit and then found out it was cost prohibitive. I couldn't do it. So yeah, I went 20 years without it. Sadly, there was one time when I actually thought I had it. They were taking money out of my account for months and kept telling me my membership card was on the way. I ended up with 2 emergency surgeries within a week. And that's when I found out I was not yet covered. So that ended up poorly with me stuck with a $60,000 bill. Yeah.
It's really, it's crazy. It's a lot of things that happen over in the U.S. A lot of times, like experiences like she went through, a lot of things aren't covered that you would think they would be. They've got these people that actually make the judgment behind the scenes, whether a certain illness that you have is going to be covered under your insurance. And it can be a pretty disheartening thing to find out if you discover you have a certain illness and you're going to have to pay for it out of pocket. It's depressing. So that's kind of a lot of people's experiences over in the U.S.
Take our last job in New York. We both worked at the same company. They did not pay well, but they had great benefits. And at our age, that was pretty important. So we worked for them. And they had a pretty comprehensive medical plan. I think we each paid like $150 to $200 a month for it. It had a higher deductible than the Netherlands. The Netherlands, the deductible is $385 for everybody. But they also had a lot of co-pays after you paid your deductible. So our company also had this savings fund for medical bills only. And you could save up to $3,000 a year in it. That was tax-free out of your paychecks. We spent it every year. We had really good health insurance, but every year on top of with our deductible and then additional expenses, it maxed out at $3,000 every year plus.
Yeah, and it's really a guessing game. A lot of times, what things are covered. Are these x-rays going to be covered? Is this procedure going to be covered? And you cross your fingers, wonder how much of it is going to be covered. Maybe a portion of it is. It got really confusing. And I guess that's the one thing that you can take away from what we took away from the insurance system in the States when we were insured. A lot of times you had worried about getting sick because am I going to be able to use my insurance for this sickness when I go to my doctor? On top of the deductible I'm going to be paying, and also medication. It's very expensive over there.
But it was usually a much larger portion than here, for instance. Here you either get it free or you pay a very small amount of it the first month that you use the medication. But it's also capped here, so you're not ever going to spend over 299 euros a year on your medications beyond your deductible, which is again $385 for everyone. But we also had the problem with health insurance turning down procedures that doctors deemed necessary. So the insurance company, they're not doctors. I knew a man who worked in approvals for an insurance company who had no medical background, but he was basically hired not to approve them, but to reject their approval claims for procedures. You had to get pre-approval for surgeries, that kind of thing. And that was his job, was they would give him bonuses for turning people down. So a doctor would say, no, you absolutely have to have this procedure. And you have someone without a medical background going, nah, if they want to pay for it themselves, which is tens of thousands of dollars, that's fine, but we're not going to cover it.
And they make the decision. So once they make that decision, it becomes a fight between your doctor and that company. So eventually they can have it overturned, but it's got to be, it's like a fight to have them make that decision to turn it over, and it will allow you to have your medication or treatment covered, and it just becomes exhausting. We haven't had that experience over here.
No.
No.
So to give you an idea, I had a cancer on my tongue, and I had the Affordable Care Act insurance at the time I was a restaurant server. My insurance company would not allow a surgeon to remove it from my tongue, and had to be an oral surgeon, but then they wouldn't allow an oral surgeon to do it because they considered oral surgeons to be only dental work. So it was a nuance in my insurance company that meant they would never approve the person who should take it off of my tongue.
Sort of fell in between, didn't it?
Yeah, it fell in between.
Dental and regular medical condition.
Yeah, so I had 18 different appointments, which I would wait for, which I would take time off of work. I was a restaurant server, so I didn't get paid for the time that I took off of work. At that time, they didn't have, now they have accumulated time off. They didn't have that then. So I just kept losing money. And also, my health insurance was 25% of my income. That was for the cheap stuff. That was for the $400 a month policy. $400 a month for the cheap stuff because it wasn't subsidized by my employer. But then they finally said, okay, there's one doctor we found who we will approve for it. And I had to wait 2 months for the appointment. And meanwhile, the tumor is growing and growing. And I went to the appointment. I was so glad to finally be in there. And he said, I don't understand why they sent you to me. I'm a breast doctor. They approved me for a breast doctor, the insurance company, not my doctor. The insurance companies were the ones in control of this. They sent me to a breast doctor to have my tongue tumor removed. So what we ended up having to do was take a personal loan, and I went to a dental school, the NYU dental school, and had them cut it off because that's all I could afford to do, and it cost $1,000 to have a dental school do it for me. And then years later it came back, but fortunately I had insurance with a new company that I was working for then, our company that we had together. I was able to get it properly removed that time. But that also brings up, the situation I had here. So here it came back, the tumor came back again. I showed it to my GP here. They immediately did me a referral to a specialist. The specialist cut it out immediately. Like I showed up at his office, he said, what's the problem? I said, this. He looked at it and he went, okay, well, let's just remove it right now. And he removed it right then and there. And I never had to call for an approval from the insurance company or anything like that. It was taken care of and it was paid for. So by the insurance company here. So I didn't have to do a thing. I went, oh, okay.
That's the one thing too. It's once you pay your monthly fee here and the full deductible, which is €385 total for the year, you don't have to worry about additional expenses for the most part, as far as we know. If you get sick, or if you get a serious disease, if you get cancer, you get in an accident, you need hospitalization, operations, all that stuff is completely covered. You don't have to worry about getting a bill. And there's something very comforting about that. And it's just knowing that it's covered and I don't have to worry about getting anything on top of my expenses. I'm gonna be fine.
One of the things is that you do get to decide what insurance company you want, but they are all capped on what the minimum is by the government, so they can't overcharge you for your annual or for your monthly fee. All of them are around like 150, 160 euros.
Depending on if you want extras, like if you want a dental plan
or glasses.
Yeah, exactly. Then you just look over the list of what each insurance company offers something different. If there's something to do with mental health, you'll pay a little bit extra for that, but it's covered. Yeah.
Some are a little more widespread through the country. They might charge a little extra. So, but everyone's in about the same ballpark.
And they're highly regulated. They can't charge you past a certain amount. So
Yes, and also the government does subsidize the cost of the health insurance for people who are low income or minimum wage workers. They will cover a portion, if not all, of your healthcare costs per month. So everyone is covered here. Anyone who's a resident of the Netherlands is covered under their healthcare. And it is privately owned insurance companies, but they are regulated by the government so that no one can price gouge medications, no one can turn you down for a procedure. They're highly regulated, and everything also is under the DigiD. When I would go to different doctors, if they weren't under my group, the medical group, because in the US there's all these private medical groups that own hospitals.
Anybody who's wondering, by the way, sorry to cut you off, who wonders what DigiD is, it's an app on your phone. You basically you can pay your taxes through that. You log into government sites, you log into your insurance through this one app. And it kind of takes care, it will direct you to other websites if you need to go to your insurance website. Cut through the red tape, really.
Right, and so they share all the information.
Yeah.
So instead of having to get copies of my record or have to tell people what I had, if I went from NYU Langone, and this happened to me, where NYU Langone is a big medical group in New York City. It includes the New York University. Then you've got Mount Sinai. I would go to a Mount Sinai doctor about my tongue, but then I had to get my records to bring to him or email to him, and I'd have to fill out forms for that to have them released. From my NYU Langone doctor to go to my Mount Sinai doctor.
The red tape is just insane.
And here, they all log into the same system. They all have the records. They communicate with each other. Within the records, you can read their correspondence with back and forth, like a specialist sends a note to your GP. You can see what he wrote to him. Yeah. You can book appointments through Mijn Gezondheid. And that one, you can also send messages to your doctor, read your lab reports, all this. And it's everywhere, so it's great.
One thing I wanted to talk about, medication-wise, I have a certain amount of medications that I get, that I take every day. Every 3 months, they would send me a bunch of the medication that I need, and I would pick them up at the pharmacy, but I didn't order it. I didn't have to go to my doctor and say, I need this medication now, I'm running low. I would suddenly get an email from my pharmacist saying, your medication for the next 3 months has arrived, and I was so impressed with that. And you can either pick your medication up during the course of business hours, or they have a medication locker that if you work...
It's like a vending machine.
Yeah, say you work a job that takes you over hours, okay, they close. I need my medication. Instead of that, they have a medication locker. Basically, you fill out this little form online. They'll send you a barcode. You put in the combination and you have your medication off hours. So, and you don't have to get it. Your wife can get it or somebody else.
Anyone with the barcode that you give it to,
I just was blown away by how simple it is. And again, that takes away that worry,
There are other differences. For instance, our doctor, basically you can choose your doctor, but within your region. You can't go to a doctor across town. You should go to a doctor that lives close enough to you. And there was even a doctor that was highly recommended to us in Leiden. We don't live in Leiden, we live in the next town down. And they were like, no, we can't, you're too far away. So you basically, not within your postcode, but within your region of your town is where your doctors are going to be that you can choose from. But you can change doctors if you ever have a problem with the doctor you have. You do have to file a request form, etc. But it's not like you're stuck with who you get, but it is a little bit of red tape to change
difficult.
it up.
But it is difficult to make appointments, because they're spread so thinly.
Yeah, you usually wait 4 or 5 weeks for an appointment. Yeah. But every doctor also lets you call in the morning, and the doctor will call you back, or you can book a day of appointment if needed. So there is some gatekeeping there from the head office, but they will answer your call and they will put you through. Whereas, in the U.S., we both have had the experience, and we had a great doctor in New York, but sending him an email and never hearing back, or, calling the office and never having them listen to their voicemail or return a call. That's happened a lot in New York. And even the greatest offices that we were working with, they didn't have a system in place that all patients should follow to get in touch. Whereas here we found every office, it's like you call before this time in the morning, we can call you back in the afternoon and deal with it. So.
I do want to mention too that everybody has been told by doctors, okay, take 2 paracetamol, call me in the morning, kind of thing. So if you're not feeling well, that's the first recommendation, line of defense, and try this first. You have to go through levels at times. Take 2 paracetamol. If you're still sick, if you're still after a couple of days of fluids or whatever, give me a call and we'll take it to the next step. But that seems to be the one out. It's the paracetamol thing.
I think it's because the majority of problems can be solved with a couple days of rest and fluids. Yeah. And the paracetamol keeps you comfortable. And you know, the one reason why the system works here is because they don't overtax it. They do gatekeep it. So I'm not picking on Americans here, but a lot of Americans will think this is something I need to go to the doctor to do, and it may not be something that they need to. And I think a lot of that too is because many Americans do not have the freedom to use days off. So I have to work. I have to be fighting fit to go to work. So I need someone to intervene with medications or something, make me feel better. Give me a magic pill, because I can't miss a day of work. I'll either get in trouble with my boss or I'll lose income. So I think the pressure there is more to get a quick fix. Here, I think people, they can use the time off. In the past, they know that rest has helped, so they take the time off. If after a few days it doesn't get better, then they'll call the doctor. Then the doctor will say, did you take paracetamol? Did you rest? Yes. Okay, well then, you know, it's not resolved itself, then we'll take a look at it. So I think here they're a little more trained for that response, so they just do it themselves. They take the time they need, the rest, the step back and see what their body does, how it responds. For instance, something that happened to me when we moved here, I have a lot of high risk for cancer in my family. So once I got of a certain age, my gynecologist wanted to see me 3 times a year for preventative screenings. Then I had to go to a dermatologist who had to check me over from head to foot once a year. I had to get the colonoscopy, the endoscopy every year. I had to have my tongue checked 4 times a year.
Sucks getting older.
It sucks getting older.
Yes, they got to check the machinery out. So
so I would have all of these appointments, like 9, 10 appointments right up front. At the beginning of my year, I'd have to book throughout the year, take the time off of work, go to them. And then, and the blood tests. So you have to see your GP once a year. They run blood tests, make sure everything's good there. And also mammogram.
Yep.
So that was twice a year. Forgot about those. So before we moved here, I got all my checks in because I didn't know how long it would take us to get established with a doctor here to do it. So I got all my checks in. We move here. We're here about 6 months, and I call my doctor. They're in the Netherlands, and they're like, "Well, what's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, nothing. I just want my annual with my blood work. You know, I'm like, I got to get this done. I got to get that done. You got to check the oil. You got to, clean the windows." And they're like, "Why? Is there something wrong?"
Yeah, it's like here the philosophy is kind of totally different. Here it's like, no, wait till you feel a pain. Wait till you're in other words, you're fine. Don't
quit freaking out.
Don't think yourself into being sick. Which there's a lot to that actually.
Yeah.
So
and they do screens. Like the nice thing is here, and we did hear from an American viewer that some insurance companies do this in the US now, but the government doesn't. Here, you will get screening tests, especially after a certain age. As soon as we moved here and we had registered our residence, we got kits. We got tits. We got. I was talking about mammograms. No, we got kits in the mail for colon cancer screening, cancer screening, or cervical cancer screening. You got another.
For colon screening, and they send you a kit. You prepare it the way they say, and you send it in the mail. And if there's something wrong, they'll contact you. And I thought that was great. I thought it was a public service that they're reaching out to me. I mean, I'm new in their country, and suddenly I get this kit to check for colon cancer.
We were surprised. But also, we didn't have to pay for it. We didn't have to make an appointment. We didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, there's stuff that you might want to get done or looked at that's elective. Like for I'm happen to be deaf in one of my ears. So I talked about to my doctor of getting hearing aids. So that's something that I'm looking into now. And I've since found out that hearing aids are much cheaper here.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So you can get that done without having to, again, bankrupt you. So,
Yes, like with his ears in the U.S., it wasn't covered under insurance. That's why he never had a hearing aid. Now it's not all roses and chocolates and champagne. We have an Anthroposophic GP, so he will do herbs and all that, which at first was terrific. Like I had this ongoing problem in the United States, which they kept giving me heavy medications for, and it didn't work. Nothing worked. And then they started doing like invasive operational procedures for it, and it didn't work. And I just thought, oh, this is just the way my life is now. Went to the doctor here, and he said, oh, well, just take this. And he gave me this herbal supplement. And I went, I had everything thrown at this problem. They were nuking it. And they were doing nuclear solutions, and he's giving me an herb. And I thought, oh, come on. Took care of it. Took care of it in a week. Something that I had been dealing with for 10 years. So I thought this is great, that a doctor is willing to try herbs first and then go nuclear later if need be. But I had some really bad health situations late last year, and we would wait for the doctor's appointment, for a month or whatever, and he would give me a little bottle of herbs. And I'm like, well, now I know this is not going to take care of this. I need blood work. I need a specialist. I need this and this. No, we'll try this first. And he'd give this to me. So I have to wait a month for him. And then I have to special order these herbs. And then I take them and they don't do any good. And I got to get a month appointment to go back and figure out what we can do next. And I was getting really frustrated. And I didn't know then I could just call his office and talk to him about it on the phone. I thought I had to make an appointment. But this went on for months. And then he would say, okay, well, we'll do blood work now. And I'd have to go get the blood work, wait for the response, talk to him again. And he'd say, okay, now we can try this again. It's like I was used to, in the U.S., if I went in with a problem, they'd say, okay, here's a referral for this specialist, this specialist, this specialist. Try these meds. If that doesn't work, then we'll get you on this one. And so you'd try everything at once. And even if you didn't need it, they were going to knock out, okay, it could be this, this, or this. So let's go after this, this, and this. And here it's like, it could be this, this, or this. This is most likely. So let's start here. And then if that doesn't work, then we'll go to this one. And if that doesn't work, we'll go to this one. Because they're protecting the healthcare system. So it's accessible for everyone. Everyone can get an appointment. So, but I wasn't used to that. I was used to just, let's do it all. Let's do it all at once. And I've learned to not have that expectation, to just sort of be like, okay, you're right. Let's address the most common, most obvious thing first, and then take it from there. And I'm not going to drop dead. And if I was going to drop dead, he would deal with that as an emergency as well. They do emergencies here.
One thing that I really want to mention here is the emergency room setup they have here. One night, River couldn't breathe, and we had to get her to an emergency room. We jumped on the tram, and we tried to keep her as comfortable as possible. We got her to the emergency room that was close by, and it was staffed very lightly, but they got her in immediately. They saw the condition that she was in, and would you say that they
did like 5 tests right away. They had an IV going. They took several tests within an hour. They had all these test results back. They knew what was going on. They were addressing it. But it was a different experience because in the U.S., people can walk into the emergency room, and a lot of people who don't have insurance or don't have a doctor will use the emergency room in that way. So they're very crowded in the U.S. You go into an emergency room, you wait for a long time. Here, it is policed in that you call a huisarts and post triage nurse on the phone, and they tell you whether to go to the huisarts and post or call your GP in the morning. If it's an emergency, then you can call an ambulance, you go to the emergency room. The huisarts and post nurse, I should have called her, and because I couldn't breathe, but I wasn't like, we took the tram. It wasn't like I was going to die. I could have called her and she could have said, go down the emergency room. And then she could have informed them I was coming. rather than us just walking in and surprising everybody, which is what happened.
There definitely is a tier of need. So if you really are in dire need and they know it, you're number one priority. That's the way it is. And they take care of you immediately, like they did for her. So we were really grateful for that.
Yeah, so I mean, there is all of the same services that the U.S. has are available to everyone here, but there is a learning curve for us as immigrants here in learning the procedures, learning the communication, but the results have been terrific.
Yeah.
It does make sense. It works in its own way, separate from how the U.S. system works. And at least we know as we age, we're going to be fine. Yeah, so universal health care. Thumbs up.
Amen. Yep.
But anyway, that's just that's some of our input on our experiences. It's a to be continued saga, I guess, as we get older, as we need it more and more.
Yeah, and tell us about your experiences too. Whether you're Dutch or whether you're a new immigrant, what have you experienced? Okay, has it been positive? Has it been negative? I know a lot of people are different based on whatever doctor they have, whatever system they're in. But we're very curious about your experiences as well with healthcare in the Netherlands.
Yeah, because it is one thing to know what things cost, how you get insurance, that sort of thing. It's another thing to actually be working in the system with your GP and so forth. So we'd love to hear your experiences.
And people have different needs too, different health needs based on your health. And again, your experiences might be a lot different, might be more positive, more negative, but we're curious. So just let us know.
Yep. And thanks again for joining us. And we'll see you next week with another diary entry. So,
tot ziens.